Sarjeet. You may be watching this in our Facebook group, Business Analyst and Scrum Master on Demand, or YouTube channel. We're doing a healthcare case study. This is our third week. We're trying to build an extension to a website that will allow people with a certain disease to have access to recipes and also be able to submit those recipes, okay? So with that, I am going to start sharing our slides. I'll give you a quick background for those who haven't joined us so far or haven't been watching this. Please go back and watch the replays. We've covered a lot of material so far. I've given you guys an intro and a framework. Lots of you guys for business analysts and Scrum Master roles are being asked to do case studies. And as I've mentioned on this and other case studies, there's no right or wrong answer for doing and how you approach a case study. All they're trying to do is evaluate your thought process. So as long as you show a logical progression from the problem statement that they gave you or what they want you to build to what you actually end up giving to them, as long as it makes logical sense, there's no right or wrong answer, right? At work, you guys will be working with stakeholders and lots of people for input. In a case study, it's the land of make-believe, so you actually get to make up stuff or have assumptions to identify scope. So just an intro, what we're doing here is we're building a website for the community for the IBD community, inflammatory bowel disease. I don't know what that is, but I'm an IT professional. So even when I work in the healthcare domains, I'm more concerned about how do I build systems for doctors, nurses, and anybody that needs to access those things. So when lots of you guys ask me questions around how important is domain knowledge is helpful, but you guys have to understand IT systems are IT systems, and there's a framework out there that helps us build systems. And the goal is to use that framework to build systems and functions in a way that makes sense. And there's actually a whole organization, right? The software development lifecycle, the waterfall methodology, and agile. Those are the frameworks that we follow to build IT systems. So going back to the question about domain knowledge, is it important? Yes, it is, but not as important as understanding and knowing how business analysts work and that framework in how you would build IT systems and build things that are of use for our stakeholders and our recipients, okay? So the problem statement here is how do you, what they're wanting to do is have the ability to submit recipes for review, right? And then have recipes for people that are suffering from this disease on a website that they can use. So that is the goal. What we did a few weeks ago, I gave you guys a framework of how do you do a case study. If you have missed that, we covered that in the first week. In our week that we were, last week, we started to identify scope. If you guys can please put yourselves on mute unless you have questions. Last week, we covered assumptions and how to identify scope. I will be going through and throughout the whole case study, we'll be coming back to this slide and adding more things as we start to refine what we want to give to our stakeholders, or in this case, your interviewers. We worked on a current state workflow diagram, right? I explained what that is. And if you missed that, that's in week 2 of this case study. And we've created a use case diagram for this case study as well. And as you can see, our primary actors are patients, doctors, nutritionists, and then our secondary actor in this case is the admin of the site. This week, my goal is going to be to focus. I don't think that we'll get to the product backlog, but my goal is to start and finish our to-be workflow diagram today. Next week, if we don't get to do the product backlog this week, week 4 will be creating the product backlog, and week 5 will be user stories and then mockups. So with that, any questions before we get started into creating our workflow diagrams? Let me pull up our diagramming tool. Okay, All right, so you guys can take yourselves off of mute now. I want this to be, how do we get the recorded sessions? So for those who have, okay, so recorded sessions are available on YouTube and Facebook. For those who have registered, I'm gonna organize and consolidate all the videos and the things that we're creating and send them to you as a package at the end. So you'll get to keep all the materials and everything towards the end. Okay, for this to work, you guys, even when I'm creating these diagrams, I want you guys to be interactive. So please let me know. I'm not creating this myself, right? I'm here to guide you in creating this diagram. So in understanding what it is that we're building, and I explained the last week what the basic, sorry, what the basic diagrams are, not diagrams, but what are these called? This is an oval, this is a rectangle, and this is a decision. So these are the common things that are used in creating workflow diagrams. So if you understand this, you'll have an easier time understanding what a workflow diagram is trying to convey to you, and you can use these shapes to then continue creating workflow diagrams as well. So with that said, understanding what it is that we're building. So we're actually creating a module. I'll make this a little bit bigger. We're creating a module, or we're creating functionality that will allow people to not only submit recipes, but also once they are submitted, allow them to show up on the website. So for me, when I start to do this, workflow diagrams, I start with the very high level, right? So level 0 or level 1 or workflow diagram details that are extremely high level, right? And this may not give you more understanding than what you already have, but having that framework, then you're able to drill down deeper and deeper and deeper, right? So level 1 will be high level. Right, so this is, we're gonna start. So what are we doing differently here? So let's say this is from an admin standpoint. Or do we want to do this overall? Let's do overall. Or end to end.
Sarabjit, I just have a quick question.
Yep.
Yeah, so when you just said that it is from, let's say, from an admin standpoint, what do you mean by that? I mean, would you have like different workflows for a different personas?
Yes, you would. And so admin workflow would be for those to review, so we're creating a dashboard where people that are submitting recipes, the admin panel would be where those recipes show up for review. So it's going to be like an approval process, right?
Okay.
That's what I mean for an admin. But I think it's important for us to understand the end-to-end first, and then identify different roles and what that looks like for different areas.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So, yep. Question.
Yeah. To follow up on her question, is that mean there will be a lot of functionality?
Jean, I'm hearing you twice, so you're joined from like 2 different devices.
Okay, let me share what's going on.
Okay. Was there another question? Jean, you want to try now? Okay, while Jean's getting that situated, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with our...
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, it was my mic. It was, yeah, sorry about that.
No worries.
I tried just to follow up with her question. Is that mean there will be a lot of functionality when you want to do this workflow for every department?
Is there a lot of functionality when we want to do workflow for each department? So it depends on what it is that we're building, right? So if there's an impact and there's something that we need somebody to do, then yes, right?
Okay.
Right? So this is what we did in our ASA. So the way that it's working now, doctors run some tests, those test results come in, and we need to determine if we need to change the diet for a particular person, right? And if the answer was yes, then phone call to talk to patient about changes in diet, send patient to external websites, right? So now what we're going to be doing is, if that is the case, right, what we're doing is now we're routing the customer or the patient, sorry, I'm saying customer, but our end user is, for this one, our patient. So if we do need, if there is a change in results, how do we anticipate this working? So we could be emailing the patient, right, with website link to recipes, right? You're spelling this wrong. No T. Right? So again, you guys, land of make believe, how are we communicating with our patients this new feature that we're building? We're going to give an email. How else do we want to communicate with our patients about this new thing that we're building? So email or let them know. Email patient, so phone call, email, and let them know.
I would say the text message, maybe.
So the goal here is to figure out how do we communicate. So we could, how does a doctor today communicate with you? So they send you an email, right? They call you up. So a nurse will call you up and let you know. They will send you an email notification, right? How else do doctors? Because we're not changing the way the doctor is going to communicate. We're changing this. We're making this website feature available to them. So anything else that I'm sorry?
Text messaging, text message.
Text message. Yes, but I don't think that we're changing the way that we're communicating, right? So this is what I'm saying. Give me 1 second and I'll explain what I mean. So this is about the communication. So yes.
You can schedule like a meeting, you know, an appointment with a patient.
Yes. So this is, let's leave it here as a high level and then let's drill down, because again, we're for this case study, what we're doing is we are identifying how are we going to make it easier for our stakeholders or folks to use this functionality that we're building. So now from here, let's create a workflow that is for what I started to do before for the admin. So in creating this workflow, let's assume that for our admin, they are, how should we do this? Doctors run some tests. The test results need to change in diet. If it is, we call them and let them know about the website. We email the patient the website link, and we send them a text message with the link. New link, right? And if there's no, we're just, then do we have here? So if it's a no phone call needed. Now to figure out how do we build this, let's actually start again from this and take it deeper. So if this, I don't do a lot of work on this beforehand, so thinking about this for the first time. So if we are starting to do this, let me think for a minute. Okay, so let's do this from a standpoint of a patient. So this patient now needs to change diet for some reason, right? They go to the website. Filter based needs like low carbs, low sugar, and etc. So do they need to filter these items? So the patient should have this information. If they do, yes, then they are presented with, how do we want to say this? Are they, how are they presented with, like, in a list format? How, again, let's figure out how we're building this. Presented with a list. And if the answer is no, then they're still presented with a list of new recipes on the site. And even if they, we can see if they have tried a recipe. Because remember, we said we wanted to give feedback. Are you guys following what I'm doing here?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if they have tried a recipe, they can provide feedback. And this again is high level, we'll need to drill down, but so if they haven't tried it, we could just end here. Okay, so here we built a really simple workflow diagram of the behavior that we want to build for the patient. So the patient, the trigger is they're informed of changing their diet. They go to the recipe page that we built for them. They're able to filter on the needs, right? Low carb, high carb, low sugar, whatever it may be, we'll work on that. So if they need to filter, they will be presented with recipes based on those filters. If they don't need to, then they're just presented with a list of new recipes. And then we're asking them if they've tried a recipe. When they click on it, right, then they can give us feedback. If they haven't tried it, then we're just gonna let them end here. But here, what we may be able to do is, remember, we wanted to give them the ability to email and print and share on social media. So here's where, once they're presented, you can add some of those things here. And so lots of times, you guys, I get one of the most common question I get asked is like, how do you know where to get started with workflow diagrams, right? And you saw how I was struggling a little bit to get started as well. And as I've already told you, there's really no right or wrong answer. But when you're working on workflow diagrams, I guess the only advice I would give to you is just to get started, because as you get started in building workflow diagrams and creating a logical way of how the system should work, you will, come up with additional things that you need to add, just like I did here, right? We are giving them a list of recipes. Then I realized from our use case that we worked on that we want to give feedback on recipes, filters we added. We want the patient to submit new recipes, so we'll add that in somewhere. But we also wanted our patient to email to a friend, share on social media. So those are things that we can go back and add once we get started. But if you try to add everything all at once, you will get stuck and not be able to make lots and lots of progress, right? So here, let's figure out a way to share these recipes. So if they're presented in a list, what we want to do is have the patient go into one particular recipe for them to share, right? Because it doesn't make sense for them to share like a whole big list of something. So maybe we add a decision point here to say, like, is there a particular recipe that they like? So they're like, and if the answer is yes, give me 1 second, you guys, hang on. Okay, sorry about that, you guys. Okay, so a particular recipe that they like, if the answer is yes, we will say that either they tried it, so let's not make this a decision. Okay, so a particular recipe they like, share via email, share to social media. Was there anything else that we wanted to do here? So email to a friend. Okay, I think that was all. And then maybe also try to make it.
I have a question, please.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so today is my first participation. I may not understand few things. That's what I want to ask this. Based on this question, a particular recipe they like. So what are we measuring here from the patient's standpoint?
I don't think I understand. Can you ask one more time?
So I'm asking, what are we measuring here?
What are we measuring here?
Yeah.
In terms of what?
Okay, given the question, if they like any recipe, is it about what they like or what can heal them?
So if they like something, I'm not again understanding what your question is.
So I thought that when the doctor did some tests and the result is that they have to change the diet,
Mm-hmm.
the goal is to be healed from something.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then they have to choose from some diets that will be presented to them
Mm-hmm.
to achieve that goal.
Mm-hmm.
So the question I'm asking here is maybe they try it, they hear them, then they can share it. But if we say if they like it, that's what I was a little bit
Oh,
confused.
okay. You're saying that you don't know if this recipe will work or not.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't think that's the function of the website, right? That's something that so from our standpoint, we are making this functionality available to patients, doctors, nutritionists, right, to give them resources that are available to people with this disease, right? Whether this recipe works or not is something that the admin folks will have to evaluate. And, from my standpoint, I'm not a doctor, but recipes don't heal people. Like the food choices don't heal people. They may help reduce their symptoms that they're having, right? So these recipes may be just those that will help reduce some of their existing symptoms versus healing them.
Okay.
But that's not what our goal is. Not to measure whether this recipe worked for 1,000 people and now it's shareable. Our role here is to build a system that will allow people or give them access to recipes that may help with some of their symptoms.
Okay, thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm kind of struggling here a little bit. What I want to do is when they click on a recipe, I want them to be able to share, but then I also want to know if they've tried it. Usually like there's a rule that you shouldn't have like two diamonds together. That's what I was trying to avoid, but I've done it so many times in my career, so I'm gonna just go ahead and do it. So now we've added the functionality that.
I have a question, Sajid.
Mhm,
You said something about the rule of not having two diamonds together.
mhm.
If let's say from the start, let's say you want to start a process, can you start it and have the decision immediately after the start?
Usually I don't think, yes. From the start, it should be some or starting point. It all kind of depends. There's nothing that will eliminate you, but you usually, I don't know. I guess I'll have to say it depends. Have I done it? Yes, but I also am known for breaking the rules a lot.
Okay, you've done it before, so yeah. I just want to know. Okay,
A lot of people will focus on these rules and things. For me, it's most important that I understand how the system needs to be built, because our programmers and developers will use these workflow diagrams to help, it helps them from a coding standpoint. But the biggest thing that workflow diagrams do is validation from a customer standpoint. Is this how we want the system to work?
Mhm.
Right. So from my standpoint, I care less about following the rules per se, and more about, do I understand? Do my customers or stakeholders understand and validate that this is how the system should work? And if so, then I move forward in working with my developers to build this out.
All right, thank
Does
you.
that make sense?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right, guys, I'm gonna now duplicate this, and we're gonna build it for from an admin standpoint, because I want to show the approval workflow. And I think that's all we'll have access, like time to do work on today. I do have another training session starting for my mastermind group in like 20 minutes. So let's continue doing this for the admin panel. These will be our future state workflow diagrams, or to be workflow diagrams for the case study. Next week when we meet, we'll work on what did I say we're going to do the following week? So we're going to start creating a product backlog, and a product backlog is nothing more than a feature list that a functionality we identify that we're going to build, right? And then user stories are lower level requirements that will help us meet things in the product backlog.
Okay,
Alright.
a quick thing, please.
Mhm.
The two diamonds that are together there, click on recipe and then try one of the recipe, etc. So going below, if the answer is here, you share via email before it ends. So when you ask the question, click on recipe.
Mhm.
Instead of put those two diamonds together, if you going to the right is share via email, share to social or friends, then you ask now the second question, try on the recipe. If the is yes, you keep going. If it's no, it goes directly to the end.
Mhm.
Is it possible to do it that way without those two diamonds together?
Without these two diamonds here,
Yeah.
then how
Between
will
between those two diamonds, you put the process share via email. If the answer is yes, you share via the email first, and then come the second diamond.
So what you're saying is, if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is they're presented with a list of recipes. We tell them to
No. The
no,
click on recipe should be is still there.
this one.
Between the two diamonds, you have a process.
Okay, so you're saying leave this here,
Yeah.
and then what?
And then you take the share via email process between the two diamonds.
Like here?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, and then this goes here.
Yes.
Because then that says that the way that this reads, it shows that you have to do these things and then get here.
Yeah.
How do I know that I want to email? Our patients will want to email, they will want to share on social media and or print. Maybe I'll just cook this from my phone. Like I'll look at the recipe from my phone and start cooking, you know.
Yeah. So
Here's what I think we could do is so and you guys, what I said earlier, everybody that creates a workflow diagram will create a different version or different looking workflow diagram. As long as you're covering the functionality that we need to build in the system and your customers validate, it hardly matters, right? So I think maybe you can say here, click on a particular recipe. And then from here, they can now either share to social media. We can see if they've tried the recipe from the website. If they have, they can provide feedback, right? Or comments. And if they haven't, we're ending them. And once they're done sharing, we can, end the process. I just thought about one other thing that we want to add on here.
No, but I'm talking about my own toys.
Okay.
And they're cuties.
Okay. Oh yeah, that's a cutie. That's my 5-year-old.
Cute.
Cutie, yeah.
How about this one?
He's a cutie too. All right.
And those are my toy chips, and it's blue.
Okay. Can you close my door, please? So we also want to give our patients the ability to submit new recipes, right? So where in the workflow diagram can we put this? So we go to the site, we filter, maybe here on the website level, we give them the ability to submit new recipes, right? So maybe here, they can either filter and start looking at recipes, or we can say, submit new recipe. That was a great question, by the way, Jane.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, the yes, those two yes, I think you have to erase them.
Okay. Oh yeah, and there's no yeses. Thank you for pointing that out. So here we're going to say, click on button to submit new recipes for consideration. Right. So here, if they do that, what needs to happen is they need to fill out a form. Right. And then we'll say, so all required info is provided. If the answer is yes, then we message something, I don't care, something like a message once they submit it, that, and then what needs to also happen is this now needs to go to the admin. How do I say this? So it's not the recipe, it's a intake request or something. So these will happen simultaneously. For now, for simplicity, I'm just gonna add this here. So if they don't provide the required information, they're gonna be stuck at this form because we don't want to look at recipes that are not complete, right? So I'm gonna loop this in here. So unless they give us all the required information, they don't get to submit. No, if the answer is yes, intake recipe, and then we're ending the process here.
So Sarabjit, even for the provide feedback, they would also still have that message that comes in saying that thank you for the feedback and
Yeah. Mhm. And so
Yeah.
that's, I was thinking about this, but I didn't want to raise it to you guys. Even when they do provide feedback, you're right, we'll give them a thank you message. Do we want the admin to review the feedback, or how do we want to handle this? I mean, this is your case study, your land of make believe, your system. So you tell me, this would be a question that I would go to my stakeholders about, right? Hey, so are we going to, do we want to review feedback on recipes that people are giving? Or do we just, post on this, on the site, any feedback that's coming through? Right?
yes.
So, lots of times people are like, how do you know what questions to ask your stakeholders? Well, you just ask them about what they're under thinking about building the system, but you actually, once you put things in a workflow diagram, there may be lots of questions that you have. And generally, this is a type of question that you would have for your stakeholders, like, how do you want to present this information? How should this work? So lots of times, we start out with interviews from our, when we work with our stakeholders, but that's generally how you have additional, like, deep down conversations about how the system needs to work is from workflow diagrams. And this is why, when we create workflow diagrams, it's really, really important that you incorporate this into your, practices once you are working as a business analyst, because it's a wealth of information. It helps you understand what you're building. It helps your stakeholders. And overall, like, I'm in love with these things. They help me build better things.
A quick question, please.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Who is qualified to be patient?
Anybody that's using the site, I guess. This is, I think this case study is for a nonprofit organization. So we're using the patient like really loosely. From our standpoint, a patient is anybody that will make use of these recipes, I guess.
So a patient is not necessarily someone who is sick.
Yeah,
Okay, I get it now.
yes, yes. So it could be somebody, like for example, if a friend or a family member has this disease that I know of, and I'm looking for recipes, I may land on this site and want to email, share to social, or print it out for my friend or family member. But I don't know. I don't know the organization. So. Okay, all right, let's go 10 minutes. This is what we did for our future state functionality from a patient standpoint. Now let's build it out for the admin. You see how we started with like a very simple looking workflow diagram and we ended up with this. And that's generally how it starts. You, with workflow diagrams, you generally start with, oops, where's my snippet? You generally start with something that's like really simple looking, and as you expand on the functionality, I'll just grab it later. It's not making it look nice. You generally expand into functionality because you're thinking about things that we need to add in here. Okay, so the trigger here for the admin panel is how do we so email notification about new recipe. What I'm thinking about is how should this work? So let's say the first time our admin, is it one admin or is it many admins? Okay, let's just assume there's like one person or one role managing this. So email notification about new recipe. And how do we want this review process to look like?
Admin should
I'm sorry.
admin should distribute the receipts to patients and caregivers. Filter out the receipts to.
So this is this is from a standpoint of when somebody's submitting a new recipe, how do we approve that and for it to show up on the website, right? So when somebody submits a new recipe here, right, intake request to review routed to admin. So this is what we're building out here, right? Is when the recipe goes to the admin, what do they do with it, right? So here is the email notification that got generated from here. So email notification about new recipe, we review the submitted recipe, and then we make a decision. Let's keep it really high level. If we're gonna add it to the website, what needs to happen is maybe we send an email notification to the person who submitted it. I'm totally making this up, right? I'm just saying, I'm just showcasing if it is submitted, we send a notification to the person who submitted it to say thank you. It will be visible in such and such time frame. So here we may want to give the admin the ability to update additional required fields. So maybe when somebody is submitting it, there's required fields, but for it to show up on the website, there may be additional things like tagging it, like tags or something that the admin needs to do for it to, get on the website. And if the answer is no, like if there was something wrong with it, we just say, thank you for submitting your favorite recipe at this time. I'm able to add this to our website. So it's a standard message, right? It's not going to give too much detail. Go ahead. Was there a question?
Yeah, as an admin, do you also have to think about any liability that can be involved when you agree on some recipe on the website?
I'm not understanding the question. I'm sorry.
As an admin, do you also have to think about any liability that can be involved when you accept a recipe on the website?
Liability such as somebody getting sick?
Yeah, somebody can say that I tried this recipe that is on this website and this is what happened to me.
I'm sure that's why there's a review process, right? Did I answer your question?
Yes, the review session, yeah, they have to talk about that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because I'm sure, so while there's filters and things for people to select, there could be a chance that somebody could get sick, we just don't know. And that's probably why there's a review process. That's why when anybody's submitting a recipe, it's not showing up. But because they're doing that review. Now, do we know what that review looks like? No. Could we detail this out more? Yes, but we don't understand what that review process may need to look like. So we're just at this point, just, identifying that there needs to be a review process before this recipe shows up on the website.
Students or maybe like they get assigned like a waiver. Each patient gets assigned like a waiver before the
Waiver for what?
like not to hold the hospital accountable if maybe whatever if the recipe don't work or doesn't improve their health or something. Yeah.
I think we could put something on the website that says, something like try at your own risk. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, more like it.
I feel like probably not, maybe some sort of disclaimer, probably, yeah, we could put on there, but I think you guys are focused on the wrong things here. We're building a way for them to have recipes on the site, have people submit recipes to this community that may not have a lot of recipes available. So are there risks associated to this? Yes, but that's why there is a review and approval. So admin would be a doctor, nurse, or nutritionist who understands the disease and understands all the like ingredients that go into making the recipe. So we're not concerned about whether this could harm somebody. We're making this functionality available to the world and to this community. So yeah, that we may need to put some sort of disclaimers and such, but that's for the business or the stakeholders to or the legal department. A lot of our IT projects, they go through a legal and compliance review as well, right? So that's for our attorneys to put those disclaimers in there and worry about if somebody gets sick, what's going to happen. Our job generally is to figure out what needs to happen and how do we deliver that functionality. Does that make sense? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I think that's all we have time for today. I've tried to make these half-an-hour sessions, but I like the interaction, and I love how expansive these are becoming. So let me know, are there any other questions for what we covered today? Were you guys able to follow along and see the process of how we do this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, it was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I'm gonna save this to our SharePoint, not SharePoint, I'm sorry, to our PowerPoint presentation. And then I think somebody did ask, like, how, for those that are registered, I will package this up and give you all the videos and the content together.
Right. Thank you. Sorry.
Yep, anytime. But they're
Thank
available
you.
on Facebook already, right? So if you missed a session, it should be on the Facebook group or YouTube channel. So you can go watch there, just so you don't miss out. But I will package all this up for you guys.